Okay, we should be live. This is the first episode of Braxcast Live, and I don't think there is a better time to do the first live stream episode of the Braxcast. Of course, Zalen launched today. Fans are responding really well to that. Also, got a whole bunch of other stuff to talk to, so hopefully, I'm going to just do one thing here. Send that now. There we go. So hopefully, some of you guys come in here. So if anybody's in the chat, please say hello. But if not, I'm going to give it a couple of minutes for people to get in here, and then I'm going to start talking about the Rippaverse. So we're going to be going into Zalen first and foremost. So probably just going to wait about a minute or so. So see if anybody actually wants to come in here. If not, going to, let's say, start. So we do have Zalen here. So showing off Zalen, we've got 2,200 total books sold, $58,000 in total sales. So this is, of course, an 80 pager by Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett. Looks absolutely amazing. Trailer looks really cool. It's going to be running for 45 days. End of quarter two is when fulfillment is going to happen. So I think best thing to do is to start with the trailer. So I'm going to play.
The universe is chaotic and consistent at the same time. From its outer reaches to its core, the law remains the same. With anything precious, there are those who would take it. Worldless, space-going scum who would sell a planet's lifeblood to the highest bidder. And damn the consequences. Their thievery ends here. As the universe has its own immutable laws, I have my own law. What kills must die.
Okay, that's the trailer. Pretty simple one. Let's see. So we don't have the most. I mean, these trailers have been pretty simple as of late. So we haven't had any like super epic animated trailer from the Rippaverse, which probably leads me to think that Rippaverse Studios is working on something decently sized. But we're going to go cover the covers right now. So we've got the lovely, if I can see it. Yeah, so this is cover A. Of course, you've got Kaio Cacao, who's doing the A cover. Now, this is a pretty hyper-realistic cover. Absolutely love the look of it. Of course, I'll be printing all these out and covering it on Braxcast. Now, cover B is the retro cover. And we'll see if I can't open that image in a new tab. We will present, stop screen, present, share screen, and we'll go to this window right here. Then we can switch. There you go. So we got a much better view, much bigger view of these covers now. So this is the B cover. Of course, let me check who's the artist for this. Cover B is by Frank Fosco, colored by Marcos Martins, who I believe is the colorist for Zalen. Absolutely lovely retro cover. This is really indicative of that 70s style. I'd say probably like the Silver Age, if I'm getting that correctly. This is introducing Galactic Protectors, Talabong, and the Mighty Zalen. So we've got Zalen Dark here. Seems to be some sort of cosmic peacekeeper. Whether or not he's sanctioned by some intergalactic state remains to be seen. We know he's born beyond the stars, defender of the cosmos. It's got a little bit of a Wolverine look with the hair going on. And of course, he's got the pointy ears as well. So this is going to be a really interesting character. Absolutely love this retro cover. So that is the cover B cover. So we are going to zoom out a little bit. We're going for the Z cover. Open that image in a new tab. Let me check who is the cover artist. And yes, I believe, yeah, Joe Bennett, I could tell, was the artist for this. So cover C is by Joe Bennett. And this, I believe, yes, this is the foil and embossed cover. Looks absolutely epic. Zalen's got a really cool character design. Absolutely love this logo here, his little like emblem on his chest and his belt. And you've got him in this very cosmic scene, because this is the Rippaverse going cosmic. Now, whether or not this one shot's going to lead to an ongoing series or a limited series remains to be seen. But we've got the wraparound cover done by the mighty Kanan White. This is going to be cover D, the mass print cover. Now, usually Kanan is the A cover artist, but he is doing cover D. So this is going to be the mass print cover. And I believe this is $20 for 80 pages. So I think that is a pretty good deal. Really excited for this one. Really excited for all the implications that we're going to see with Zalen, especially with the Rippaverse going cosmic. So this is going to be a Zalen Dark, a force of justice in a universe teetering on chaos, guided by a single unyielding creed: what kills dies. So, and we will go over the, let's see, go back to the collection here. And we will check out $60,000, just past that milestone. But I wanted to go and look at some of the interiors here. So we'll open this image in a new tab. Look at this first interior. Really interesting stuff. Very interesting about who these guys are. I mean, these look to be like regular civilians. We do know from the log line that he goes to the planet Hadrian 4, if I can find the dang log line. So Zalen Dark, his search for a wasteland, his search for answers leads him back to the world he once called home, now a barren wasteland ravaged by an unknown enemy. Among the ruins, a message written in the language of his ancestors hints at a forgotten truth. Before he can uncover its meaning, warships descend, dragging him into a conflict that could change everything he thought he knew. Let's see. So I believe Hadrian 4 is that planet that is being talked about. I swear I saw it on the the like this log line little blurb here. Could be getting that wrong, but might be on. If we can view the product here. Oh yes, here we go. Search for answers leads him to Hadrian 4, the desolate remains of his former homeworld, where a cryptic message. So Hadrian 4. Now Hadrian is a Roman emperor. So I mean, it does have a good like spacefaring name, but I mean, does this lead us to believe that humans are involved in the intergalactic scene? Who knows? But Hadrian 4, Hadrian is a Roman emperor. And I don't think there's been 4 Hadrians, but I just know Hadrian was a Roman emperor, I believe, before Trajan. But yeah, my my Roman dynasty knowledge isn't the best, but that was a little interesting thing to me. So this does seem to be the establishment of the story of Zalen. Now, like I said, whether or not this is going to lead us into getting a full ongoing series or a limited series, I think a limited series would be more likely. I mean, Joe Bennett being the artist for anything more than this Zalen book is going to be a little bit precarious for him, considering that he's already the artist for 2 ongoing series, that, or I should say the penciler, right? So the penciler being Fabio Jansen is doing the inks for this book. He did the inks for Horseman, I believe. Absolutely fantastic work at inking Horseman. Of course, his pencils, Joe Bennett's pencils, were top notch. But him being the artist for 2 ongoing series and then having Zalen, even though it was a limited series, I think would be a bit too much. I do think giving Jack Herbert, since he's working with Chuck Dixon on Great War of Separation, which is fulfilling this week, I am getting those books tomorrow. So expect a review for Great War of Separation tomorrow. It looks like we've got free viewers in here. So if you guys are just coming in, I did play the trailer. So, you know, if you want to come into the chat and say, let's watch the trailer again, that's fine. But I'm just really nerding out about Zalen here, because there's a lot of really cool implications with Zalen. So like I said earlier, is that Chuck Dixon, is that Joe Bennett is working on 2 ongoing series in Horseman and Alpha Core. He's the penciler for both of those. So to give Zalen or to greenlight Zalen as an ongoing or even a limited series, I think you would have to have somebody other than Joe Bennett doing the art. I think Jack Herbert would be a good pick after Great War Separation is done with its limited series run. To put him onto a Zalen limited series would be fantastic, since he is working with Chuck Dixon on Great War Separation. So I think that would be a pretty natural thing. Now, of course, if Joe Bennett can do 3 ongoing or 2 ongoing in a limited series, if that's not going to overwork him, I think he should do it, because Joe Bennett's a fantastic artist. He has such an incredible output in terms of quality and quantity. So much so that we are getting the art of Joe Bennett #2. So of course, the first art of Joe Bennett covered his it was the more or less an art of Alpha Core book. But this is probably going to feature art from Zalen, probably art from Horseman, and then of course art from Alpha Core as well. I think of the Rippaverse interior artists, he's definitely the most prolific, because he's worked on, at this point, it's going to be 2 one-shots, Horseman, Welcome to Flores Park, and Zalen, What Kills Must Die. And then he's on 2 ongoing series in Alpha Core and Horseman, with Horseman #1 releasing this year. That's one that a lot of people are really excited for in Horseman. So if you guys want me to keep talking about Zalen, definitely welcome for that. So we are going to kind of move on into like the speculation of Zalen. So this is Magus Newmight's Dokuman card. And Magus Newmight's Dokuman card mentions that he is the champion of the Void Scarabs. If you can see my mouse there, going over that Void Scarabs bit of text on the Dokuman card. So is the Void Scarabs the reason why Hadrian 4 went or became desolate? Who knows? But it's a little interesting theory to float out there. Of course, we're only going to know about that once we actually get the book in our hands sometime after or after the end of Q2 is when the fulfillment is starting. Of course, this art looks absolutely amazing. Gotta love the way these figures are rendered. Of course, we're going to have a lot of cosmic stuff going on. So, of course, I'll be printing out this interior art. I'll be giving my little talk about this on Braxcast. So, or the next episode of Braxcast, which I believe is 57. I think I'm up to 57 already. So, this is definitely something I will be talking about on the, on the my regular Saturday Braxcast. So this live is just a little fun thing. Since the Random Rippaverse Ramblings stream did quite well, I figured I'd do this, have a lot of fun with this, and it was a really good like timing that Zalen decided to launch today, and we'll refresh the page, but we did just pass that $60,000 milestone. 2,200 books sold in less than a day. This launched 7 a.m. Eastern. And it is currently 6:13, so it hasn't even been like 12 hours since this launched. Absolutely love to see the fans responding to this release like this. Of course, there's always a lot of hype when a new Rippaverse book comes out, and we've got so many down the pipeline. And I think one of the real interesting things, and we'll go into this, is we've got the Heroes stash. So with the amount of stuff that's coming out, and this was something that was mentioned in ISOM #1. And well, I mean, we can go over Gothic's video, but the basic thing is that when ISOM #1 came out, I remember a lot of people asking Rippa if they could consolidate orders. Like, I have multiple orders, I want them all shipped out to me at once. And Rippa at the time was like, that's a logistical nightmare. I don't think he used that exact terminology, but it's just a hard thing to consolidate multiple orders. Haven't figured out how to do that. Well, they have done that. So nothing's grandfathered in. So this is a going forward sort of thing. So you have to put in orders now. So if you put an order for Zalen and ISOM #3 and you want them to come when Zalen fulfills, you can, you can do that. So that is the thing there. That is the entire, I guess, intention, is that you have a bunch of, you get them on pre-orders at different times, and then you consolidate them when the latest pre-order comes out. So this is only for stuff that's being pre-ordered. So if you're just buying stuff from the store, right? You've got the store here, and let's say you wanted to buy a copy of, you've got the, like, oof, let's see if I can't find anything. Well, Bloodruth is now out. So if you buy like a copy of Bloodruth, you're just going to get that, right? You buy like, an item number 1 or an item number 2 or an alpha core, they just ship that to you basically the next business day or day of, because that is how buying stuff that's currently in stock works. But you can consolidate pre-orders provided you are doing it after today. So if you pre-order Zalen, and then let's say a couple weeks from now, the Sersha collection comes out, and you want to get Sersha and Zalen at the same time, you just have them in your hero stash. You consolidate those orders, and then you just pay one shipping bill. Absolutely fantastic to see stuff like that. And like I said, this is one of the first things that Zalen. Oh, the Saska sisters are here. Absolutely love that. Now I can give the link. Let me see. I can give the link here. But yeah, thank you to the Saska sisters for making such a great book in Bloodruth #1 and Yaira #1. I got my Yaira statue today. I'll be showing that off tomorrow on Braxcast, and she's right by me. Absolutely intimidating me. But the McFarlane Toys Yaira statue is absolutely amazing. So be sure to tune into that Braxcast tomorrow, because I'll be showing off the box. Came in this massive box, and it's a really high quality statue. So it's probably like the best statue I've ever gotten. I'm used to having amiibos, but really nice to see the Saskas. And thank you for showing love to the Braxcast. And like I said, I put the link to the StreamYard, so if you guys want to come and talk about stuff. I was going to go and talk about Bloodruth because I've got some stuff in Genesis and numbers, because with you guys having mentioned or not having mentioned, we have the fact that it starts with the story of Cain and Abel, and how the, I guess, biblical canon ties into the story of Bloodruth. Yes, brought Yaira home. We love it. Thank you for your gracious support. You are awesome. Oh man, thank you so much. So let's see if I can't show. Let's see here. Go settings. Go to virtual background. We show none here. Let's see if I can't. We'll remove that for now. But man, this thing is absolutely. I got it over here. I don't want to drop it. But this is the Yaira statue. I mean, look at how massive. Like, the stand is massive. Absolutely amazing to see. Got the flowing hair, the blue fringes at the end. I've always mentioned this about her character design, is that I love the waist area. Just love her entire costume, and it looks absolutely amazing to see. Of course, you've got the eyes that are all blue, or I'd say that glowing white. Very, very amazing. This is like probably the best first statue. So we've got Logic Finest in the chat. Says, you ladies are awesome talking about the Saskas. Keep doing such great work. I always say this, but I love your film. Rabid Yaira #1 is a layered, intricate story. Definitely agree with that. Makes Yaira #1 is probably still one of my most favorite books in the Rippaverse, because of just all of the implications that it gives us, the readers, especially with that ending with Neptune. If I'm allowed to say that, allowed to spoil that, but I'm going to put Yaira back there. Oh man, that thing is actually really heavy. The stand is really solid. And if you guys were wondering, what I have is put that. There we go. There we go. So I'll put that 93 is what I have. So I have the 93rd statue. But thank you for being in the chat, Logic's Finest. Let's see. Let's see. Cannot wait for you all to get Yaira #2. Yes. Way more hints at her past in that one. Really excited for Yaira #2. It should be fulfilling this month. And of course, I will be reviewing Yaira number 2. So I think what I want to get into is definitely, I don't know, more Zalen could talk about Bloodruth, because I definitely want to talk a little bit about Bloodruth, because I did my Bloodruth review on the 28th of February. You guys really liked it. I got almost 400 views on that, which is a lot for me as a fledgling YouTuber with less than 100 subscribers. So you guys really responded well to that review. And one of the things that was mentioned is that I say that the beginning of this book, Yaira Bloodruth number 1, you see this takes place with the story of Cain and Abel. Of course, Abel was a Abel was a shepherd. He had sheep. And Cain was a tiller of the land. And you see in this scene right here, we've got the grain offering. Grain offerings are very biblical. They're mentioned, I believe they're established in Leviticus, and all throughout the Old Testament they mention grain offerings and burnt offerings. But you also have offering of a lamb, and this is also, you can also perceive sacrificing a lamb as being a bit of a Christophany, because Christ is referred to as a lamb that takes on the sins of the world. That's a whole thing. Absolutely love the coloring here from Brett Smith. That really shows that Abel is being favored over Cain. And then, of course, we have the killing of Cain. And, of course, that marks him for being cursed by, not necessarily being cursed by God, but because of his sin, he is cursed. He bears the mark of Cain. And that is, the implication is that you have this cursed bloodline for this cursed bloodline that is the origin of the Bloodruths. And one of the things that people mention, Mike has bad news in the chat. Hello to you guys. Yes, in the Yaira statue, she absolutely is beautiful. It's such a nice thing to have. It's also really solidly built, and the box that it came in is absolutely fantastic as well. But we are going to doing, I guess, a little bit of exegesis. So we've got the 4th chapter of Genesis here. And now one of the things you might say to me is, Joker, when Cain kills Abel and he's cast out by God, he couldn't possibly have had any kids. Well, in the Bible, it says, then Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and gave birth to Enoch. And if you know Enoch, there's the book of Enoch. It's not considered canon to most churches except the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, but Enoch is a biblical character. Built a city and called the name the city of Enoch, and his son Enoch was born Arad, and Arad was the father of Mehujalah, and Mehujalah was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Of course, this shows that we had a bloodline there. So that is Genesis chapter 4, which establishes Cain and Abel being born, the fact that Cain tilled the ground, Abel shepherded the sheep. God was satisfied with Abel's sacrifice, but not Cain's. Cain is angry at this, and he takes his anger out on his brother by murdering him. That's where he says, am I my brother's keeper? When God asks where he is, and his blood speaks from the ground, testifying to what he does, and that's why he is cast out. But you do also have Genesis chapter 6. A very interesting thing is that you have the Nephilim. The Nephilim were on the earth were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, right? And then you have then Yahweh saw that the evil of man was great on earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And Yahweh regretted that he had made man on earth, and he was grieved in his heart. And Yahweh said, I will blot out man whom I created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to the birds of the sky. I regret that I have made them. So very interesting thing. This very much mentions establishing that Yahweh. So I'm using the Legacy Standard Bible translation here. If you have a New King James Version, anything based off of that, it will usually say Lord here. But LSB, Legacy Standard Bible, uses Yahweh, which is the classical Hebrew term when you're talking about God the Father. So, oh yes, thank you for, we've got Andrew in the show. Ram here. So, of course, I interviewed Andrew twice on the Braxcast as a pre-recorded affair. Absolutely love that. But let me finish this little point that I'm making. So the implication here is that the Nephilim are talked about before and after, and then it's right after going to the fact that God, the Father, regrets having made man. and is resolving to flood the earth. So a lot of people, or I'd say I had this thing saying, well, Noah's flood ruins the bloodline of Cain because Noah only takes himself, his wives, and his sons and their wives. That's Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And Shem, Ham, and Japheth repopulate the whole earth after Noah's flood. And that's the way man continues. And of course, Noah's genealogy traces back to Adam through Seth, not through Cain. Of course, Abel had no children because his life was cut short early by his brother. But we do have the fact that the Nephilim were able to survive, so maybe one of Cain's descendants was able to survive. Of course, I'm sure the Saska sisters know exactly what happened in the Rippaverse, and of course, with us thinking about this as a comic book, it's very possible that the suspension of disbelief is that the flood happened, and we have a descendant of Cain that survives and is the progenitor of the Bloodruth line. But that's just my little thing there. I definitely wanted to mention that, and of course, you have Numbers 13:33. This is after the Exodus. Numbers is named for this census that happens of the 12 tribes of Israel. And with that, God uses that census to start the inheritance when they get into the Holy Land of Canaan. So this is after the Exodus. This is during the 40 years between Egypt and entering the Holy Land. And this is Numbers 13 when Moses sends spies into Canaan to spy it out. And they see Nephilim, the sons of Anak, are part of the Nephilim. And we became like grasshoppers in our own sights. And so we were in their sight. Now, this could be a euphemism, but it does mention giants. So Nephilim are mentioned after the flood in Numbers 13:33. So that is the implication there. Very interesting stuff. So there is a wealth of knowledge, or I'd say there's a wealth of history associated with the Bible. And you can absolutely get into so many interesting stories. So that character like Bloodruth being a part of the Rippaverse gives the, I guess, gives them so much to do. The Saskas have so many interesting stories they could tell with Bloodruth, which is why I'm super excited for Bloodruth number 2. So I'm going to check out the chat here. So just reading Great War number 2. Love having a cast for company. So I haven't even read Great War number 1 yet. I'm getting that tomorrow. I'm really excited for that. So don't spoil anything for me. Let's see. Finest makes. Oh yeah. So Logic was saying I really enjoy intricate later stories. And Saskas write all of the stories that way. He's a huge fan. 4 of the 5 different threads in Yaira number 1 and no trope endings. Great work. Yeah, Yaira number 1, I still would say it's my favorite book. Of course, Yaira was just this really interesting character in Isom number 1. Everybody wanted to know more about her. And of course, her campaign making over $1.5 million in its 75-day run, with that first 1 million being in like just over 24 hours. Of course, being accompanied by a live action trailer, which was a little bit campy, but I really admired what it was. And of course, it was very faithful to the comics, especially after reading Yaira number 1 and seeing those scenes and be like, oh, that's what the live action trailer was adapting. So absolutely love to see that. So Mike got his Great War of Separation today. Hopefully you enjoy it. Like I said, I'm getting mine tomorrow. And I want to do my Braxcast. I believe it's going to be 57 after I get my Great War of Separation. So it's probably going to be a little bit later in the day if you're on the East Coast. I'd say later than when I usually upload it. So let's see. For the real read, it's effing wild. Chuck and Jack killed it on that book. I mean, Chuck's a great writer. It looks like Jack Herbert's going to put out some fantastic art from the previews I've seen, which is why I think if anybody is going to do a Zalen limited series and Joe Bennett is busy with Alpha Core and Horseman, it should be Jack Herbert. But yeah, I've got some fan art here from The Gilded. So we're looking at some of that. Really fantastic stuff to see. Of course, you've got the pigeons versus the hamsters there. But let's see. I'm kind of like all over the place, but this is really cool to see. I'd say this is definitely the first bit of art. So this is a 1-page spread. Joe Bennett is an artist who has so many spreads. Like he's got all these 2-page and single-page spreads. Horseman and Alpha Core have so many of them. And it's one of what I mentioned in my reviews. And it's part of what makes those books as interesting as they are is those 2-page spreads or those single-page spreads. This looks like it's going to be a single-page spread of Zalen looking over what's most likely Hadrian 4. Looks like you've got 2 suns there. And of course, you've got the cape there. You got this shot of his face. Looks absolutely amazing. We've got these aliens here. I believe, based on, again, this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love the if I can see, one of the reasons, here that Zalen is a very attractive character. Let's see, Kara was calling him Space Daddy. I'm not sure if I'd go that far, but we've got Tala Bong and the mighty Zalen. So I imagine that in this preview page, if I can get back to it, we got to get back to this preview page right here. This is probably, Tala right here, and then this is probably maybe some helpers, but you got Tala, Bong, and then you probably got, I guess, some helpers there, and of course you've got Zalen Dark, and all of Zalen's got, obviously he's built. Yes, Zalen is. I've been informed by the Scassos that Zalen is in fact Space Daddy. But let's get back with the chat. It certainly is a party. 32 flavors of Nick Weiser. I've got 8 viewers in here, which is than I thought I was going to get. So thank you guys for showing up. Absolutely love to see that. So Tubal Cain is a direct descendant of Cain and the biblical creator of metalworking, blacksmithing, and technology by extension. Many implications and possibilities for Saskia stories. That's what I'm getting at, Logic, is that there is such a wealth of history established in the Old and New Testaments, especially if you put in the Deuterocanon. You've got Maccabees, Tobit, Wisdom of Solomon. Oh yeah, Zalen hits the gym for. I mean, I'm not sure if Zalen's like lifting weights, but like you don't necessarily need to have like the weightlifting. But of course, if you're flying around all day, you're killing stuff that's trying to kill you, you gotta be pretty built. And I like the Wolverine like style hair there. Reminds me of that. Looks absolutely fantastic, but this definitely looks like he's the guy who's serious and in control, and he's got a bunch of people who mean well, but they just can't get it together, and he's got to be the unifying force. That's what this page is really getting at to me. I am stoked to read The Great War Separation 2. I am reading that tomorrow. Of course, I'll be showing off the covers physically when I get them tomorrow, and I'll be doing my episode of Braxcast after I get Great War Separation. Of course, I'll be doing my review as well. That's going to be a 56 pager, so it'll be a pretty quick read compared to some of the other Rippaverse books, especially like Horseman and Alpha Core, Yaira, Isom 1 being 96, and then Isom 2 being around 127. And of course, we've got 144 pages for Isom number 3, which is absolutely ridiculous, but we absolutely love to see a 144 page Isom free, because there's a lot of stuff that Isom 1 and 2 established that needs to be tied up in 3, and I think 144 pages Eric is going to be able to do that. So Mike's going to read Great War Separation once he is done with work. I am done with work for the week. I had a really busy week at work, but now it is the weekend, and hopefully if it's the weekend for you guys too, you guys have a restful weekend. Let's see. No spoilers, but Zalen lists some heavy stuff, literally and figuratively. Man, I am really, really excited to see that. So now that we've got a bunch of people in the chat, let me go ahead and remove that, stop the screen, and because I can't do audio unless I am sharing the tab specifically. Oh yeah, the covers are absolutely fantastic. We love to see those covers. So let me add the stage here. So you see the B cover. We especially got. I'm gonna open up the tab there, but we are going to watch the trailer here again. Started out, but we are going to play it again because it got people. Yeah, so B is clearly the Kirby cover. Yeah, it's that retro cover. And that is something that the fans are mandating. C is the foil. C is always that foil and emboss, but we're getting to the cover, and then we'll go back with the random commentary.
The universe is chaotic and consistent at the same time. From its outer reaches to its core, the law remains the same. With anything precious, there are those who would take it. Worldless, space-going scum who would sell a planet's lifeblood to the highest bidder. And damn the consequences. Their thievery ends here. As the universe has its own immutable laws, I have my own law. What kills must die.
Wow, absolutely amazing. I watched this so many times now. But yes, with the idea of having a cosmic peacekeeper is a really interesting thing. And like I said, what if Zalen runs into Magus Newmite, and that's the reason why Hadrian 4 is a desolate planet now, is because of the void scarabs. Who knows? I mean, the Saskas know. Nick has his own law. Okay, very nice to see. I don't think Zalen's going to like that. Sounds like he's buds with Judge Dredd. I don't exactly know who Dredd is, but I'm sure it might be. But we'll get into the comment from Logic's Finest. Sci-fi is his favorite genre. It's about human stories. The sci-fi is just a background setting for great drama and storytelling. Less giant space battles, more human drama for me. Now, I've written 2 science fiction books. I have to agree with this, is that science fiction is a backdrop for so many things. So we, not we, but you can do a lot with science fiction. I think a lot of people, or I would say a lot of creatives, just use science fiction to tell, I don't know, these Star Wars or Star Trek-esque stories rather than trying to tell an interesting story and weaving science fiction into it. So I had just this idea, and it happened to be one that fell best under science fiction. That is Machine to Man, and the prequel I am getting ready to publish now, so that'll be out sometime this year. But Machine to Man is on Substack, so I can probably show that off at some point. But this is Braxcast Live. This isn't me showing my own stuff. So we're going to go back to sharing the Zalen window here. So we are going to add that to the stage. We can show that. So we're going back to the Zalen covers. Now this is, of course, this Kirby-inspired cover, right? And I absolutely love to see that Rippaverse Code of Ethics right there. And I absolutely love to see, all of this lettering here, this classic style. Definitely has a Kirby-inspired cover. And this is probably one of the heavy things, he is covering. I think this is let's see, Frank Fosco, yes, is the cover artist, and I absolutely love this like classic rendition of the Zalen logo. So I definitely think Zalen is something that's going to, we're going to have to at least get in a limited series, because I imagine, we'll go back to that Zalen campaign or collection page, I should say, considering that we are about $60,000 in that first day, and it's probably going to peter off around, $70,000 to $80,000 that first day. So you're most likely going to see this collection make, I don't know, between $150,000 and $300,000. That's definitely enough interest to greenlight at least a limited series. Man, the retro covers, the retro covers are absolutely amazing. So, and again, I will put the link in the chat. So if the Saskas or Andrew or any Rippaverse staff want to come in and gab with me, more than welcome to do so. So let's see. So definitely love the Zalen voice. Yeah, that voice actor does an amazing job. I think the best voice actor for any Rippaverse trailer so far has been the voice actor for Brian Solari. He's got this booming, authoritative voice, which really suits him well. So hopefully if we get a Horseman show, we'll most likely get some voice work from Brian Solari, especially based on what Chuck Dixon told me when I interviewed him, and I believe it was episode 50 of the Braxcast, maybe 51. I can't remember. But he told me that there's going to be a lot of crossover between Horseman and Alpha Core, so that's going to be really interesting to see. And again, if we do get that Horseman show with with hitting the membership goals, then I imagine Brian Solari would make an animated appearance in that Horseman show. And of course, you've got Dean Cain voicing Horseman. That'd be really interesting to see. So the Saskas, their favorite actor is Chloe for Bloodruth. She's got so much emotion in her voice. Yeah, it's just that with the trailers, it's so hard because they're so limited in terms of so little. But yeah, it does fantastic work. So let's see, Liv, if I can be a limited time, I'd be happy to pop in. Yeah, if you want to come in, gab a little bit, I'm honestly fine with that. See, so yeah, Dean Kane is the man. Very good friend of yours. Yeah, I saw you guys working on an action movie together. Absolutely love to see stuff like that. See, so let's see. Logic Finest, Red Armor by John Steakley. If you love great sci-fi drama, redemption, sacrifice, duty, evil, it's a homage to Heinlein, but it is its own great story, intricate, complex, and layered. Really nice comment from Logic Finest. Again, absolutely love to see you guys in the chat. So I do have the studio open. So, I guess, any fans, love to see the Sasuke's come in. I can pick your brains on about Bloodruth or Yaira number 2 or Great War Separation. Of course, I would try and not get you guys to spoil. Of course, would absolutely love to talk about Michael Copper and Lillian Renashi. And I'm not going to play favorites. I love both of those characters ever since they were introduced in Item number 1 and that first set of Dokuman cards. So the Black Eyed Club and the Cursed, I believe, are those graphic novels, those one-shot graphic novels that were talked about or were revealed in the Rippaverse December 27th, 2024. So absolutely love to see that. But yeah, we do have Zalen. This is basically, I'd say, the big event today for the Rippaverse. And I did talk about Art of Joe Bennett number 2. So, of course, like I said, Joe Bennett is probably the most prolific artist for the Rippaverse in terms of interior art. He's done the most amount of any single artist. Cliff is probably going to come in at a second, just how beefy Item 2 and 3 are. But Joe Bennett definitely is. Let's see. So Sasuke going to have to come on someday. I'd love to talk that, doing a couple of edits for the boss right now, but we'll find time to jump in and talk comics. Well, that's okay. If you guys got to work, I understand that. And especially do not want to do anything that is shirking your business responsibility. So I understand that. But yeah, my DMs on Twitter are open. So I'd love to do like a pre-recorded interview like I did with Chuck, like I did with Andrew twice, and just talk to you about Yaira, Bloodruth, and of course the Cursed and the Black Eyed Club. I just have that as a pre-recorded interview for the fans, of course, for myself, because I just love talking about comic books, especially the Rippaverse. Absolutely fantastic. But we are getting a second Art of Joe Bennett book, and this is going to be commentated by Fabio Jansen, who did the commentary for the I believe he did the commentary for the first art of Joe Bennett, which was the art of Alpha Core. And I reviewed that on Braxcast. Absolutely loved that. So I imagine this is going to include art from Zalen, art from Zalen, art from Horseman, and probably some art from Alpha Core. We might see some preview pages for Alpha Core number 2. Let's see. Logic is asking the Saskas if we will see any overlap between Sydney Bloodruth, Norfolka, and Yaira specifically. Now, I think overlap between Bloodruth and Norfolka is going to make sense because of all the supernatural implication or supernatural aspects of both of their characters. But Norfolka is something I'm super interested in because that's going to be foundational to the lore. I'd say the Great War Separation and Norfolk are going to be really foundational to establishing our knowledge of the lore of the Rippaverse. See, Gooding seems to be like a natural overlap character in a very good way. I think Gooding is a character that's going to overlap with just about everybody. Gooding is always going to be offering his services to just about everybody, whether it's Bloodruth, whether it's Isom, whether it's Copper and Lillian Renashi. Of course, he knows them. I imagine they're going to get in contact with him at some point because the Copper and Renashi, they love to work through people. And I saw this theory from somebody. I'm so sorry I can't name the person specifically because it escapes my mind. But they said, are they demons? And one of the things that really supports that narrative, or that theory, I should say, is the fact that Michael Copper and Lillian Renashi, they love to work through people. You see in Alpha Core number 1, they're working through they're doing everything through Billy Bob and Galvin, and of course you had that person who was hired to be the bank robber of Texas National Bank, if I'm remembering that correctly. Texas National Bank, if I am remembering that correctly. So they did very little on their own, even though they're capable of doing it, but they love to work through people. And that's what demons love to do. Again, bring this back to the Bible. I believe it's in the Gospel according to Mark that narrates Jesus casting a demon out of a man, Legion. My name is Legion, for we are many, and putting those demons into pigs, and then the pigs all run off the cliff. I believe that is that story. But demons love to work through people, and since Copper and Renashi, they're constantly working through people. I'd say that corroborates the theory that Lillian Renashi and Michael Copper are, if not outright demons, at least being influenced by, like a Morning Star or a Fae, maybe even someone like Choke. But Choke seems to be more like a someone who takes orders and is more like a brute. But let's see. We cannot wait to talk the Black Eye Club and the Curse with You. They are very adult books. Oh man, very excited to see that. But yes, absolutely can't wait to talk about those two books, especially those two characters. Your guys' experience writing those characters and how that differs from when you guys are working together writing Bloodruth and Yaira versus when you guys are doing your own solo projects. But I would definitely want to save that for like an interview. So yes, saying maybe to the theory of the overlap between Bloodruth, Norfolka, and Yaira. And Choke was fun. Absolutely loved Choke. Yes, his 2-page reveal. I would have preferred that to be a single spread. But yeah, Choke is a fun character. Hopefully he comes back. Let's see. Yes, both the Lillian and Michael books go together too. I imagine they would. So that's going to be a really, really interesting thing to see how all these pieces fit together. Because this is the whole point of a comic book universe, is that you have all these pieces of the puzzle, and then you as the reader have to start putting them together. And as we're getting more books, you were seeing when you read Yaira #1, just like, you see, this is what happened, what Yaira does after she chucks Isom into the roof of a car. Absolutely entertaining to see. And then of course, you see Bloodruth in Gooding. It's like, this is how Gooding knows Bloodruth, and it's like, this is how Bloodruth got into our castle. And then you see, it's like, and it also raises more questions, like, how does Gooding know the Bloodruth family? Because he knew about Bloodruth as being the youngest daughter of the Bloodruth family. So it implies that Gooding knew about the Bloodruths. Like, when do you learn about that? And it's like, well, we got to get more books. Got to learn more. Mike Barron's got to explain that to us, and the more Gooding that we're getting. Oh, we got Nick Weiser on the stage. So I've added you to the stage, Nick Weiser. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. A pleasure to meet you. I've heard about you through, let's just say, other people in our sphere, so it's nice to finally cross paths. Thanks for letting me in here.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Always love talking to a fan of the Rippaverse. So I got in with Isom #1. I knew about the Rippaverse before it was even called the Rippaverse. Eric was just saying, I'm making a comic book. I have aspirations to make a universe that can compete with Marvel and DC. And I was like, sign me up. I read all of Invincible to prepare myself for that. And then Isom #1 comes out, and I've been a fan ever since. So I'll let you talk about how you became a fan of the Rippaverse.
Well, I guess, like most people, I was a fan of Virtualized channel. He was really where it was off to the races for me. I was hooked on his channel. He was the first channel, I guess you could say, on this corner of YouTube that I discovered. Like, I was watching a lot of his videos because he was feeling a lot of the same way I was feeling about comics. There's fewer and fewer books I was enjoying. The ones I was enjoying, I would love to tell people at my shop, but it was very apparent there was less of them, especially in the big two. And, when I heard that, he was going to actually get to doing a comic book sooner than later, that was an interesting surprise, because I remember in 2019, he's like, yeah, I want to do it someday. But then, obviously, let's just say the way 2020, 2021 went, the way the world events happened, it really sped up the process for him to get going sooner. And I'm like, I got to pay attention to this. So I do run a channel, and me and my buddies were, we've been paying attention. Like, oh man, let's see how this goes, because it'd be nice to see someone in this corner get something going and, have an established universe filled with characters. And obviously outside of one book, I've backed all of them day one. Actually, I lied. date outside of 2, I've backed them all on day 1. So yeah, I've been really enjoying the books. It's been cool to see the universe really expand. And I know it's really crazy that it happened within the sum of what 2.5 years now that we're at,
Oh,
which I
yeah.
didn't think was going to happen because I didn't, and it wasn't anything bad. It was just like you don't even expect to have a full line wide scale of publishing, but yet here we are. I'm like, okay, well, cowabunga it is.
Yeah, no, totally. So, the thing with Isom number one made $3.7 million, and I've backed, I think, basically every book day one. And I got the Irish statue, got the Isom statue. I think I waited a couple of days to get the Isom number or the Irish statue because it was $500. I was like, oh, it's really cool. I'm such a big fan. I want to get it. But I eventually bit the bullet, and my bank account is still hating me for it. But we've got Zay Comics in the chat. Of course, he's a subscriber of mine. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being a subscriber. So definitely hail to you. Logic wants to see more mythologies that have been done: Yoruba, Aztec, Nordic, Japanese. You studied them, see the overlap. There's a lot of overlap with basically mythology, religions. So you study them all, you'll see these overlaps. But I don't necessarily want to get into that. I want to keep talking to you, Nick, and definitely agree with you is that Eric has taken this mandate he got from the fans with Isom number one making 3.7 million and then Isom number two making 2.3 million. So that's like 5 million between the two of them. And it's just been throwing this money at artists, throwing this money at people like McFarlane Toy or say McFarlane Toys, Iron Studios, establishing Rippaverse Studios, doing stuff with the website. So it's been taking this money, putting it back into the business, which is why we're probably getting like 14 books or so this year. So at the end of this year, we're going to have, over 1,000 pages of content. And this is all going to be done in the course of just over 3 years. So he had these aspirations. The fans said, we want to get you there. And he's really been going off the races. So that is really the reason why you're seeing is because he's had this economic mandate from the fans to do it. And he's actually someone that actually wants to execute on that. So this is one of the issues that I saw when I was getting into the independent comic book scene. It took me a while because of all the books that I backed and how many of them I haven't gotten, is that there's a lot of interesting ideas, but a lot of people go into the comic book, I guess, indie comic book scene, the modern one with, crowdfunding through Indiegogo and Kickstarter and now Fund My Comic. And they treat it very casually. They don't have a business sense about it. And they just have, I don't know, very limited aspirations, and they don't have this need to get the product out quickly. It's just, you get your, funding goals met. You make a bunch of videos online about this, that, and the third, and that is enough. But with Eric, it's like, I want to make the Rippaverse into an actual comic book universe. I want the Rippaverse Comics to be a legitimate publisher. And you can only do that if you're actually putting out books. And that's what they've been doing. And as someone who's read all of the books, I quite happen to enjoy them. Like, I don't think these are just like pieces of YouTube merch made to own the liberals or whatever. I think these are actual legitimate comic books made by very talented people, Joe Bettick, Cliff Richards, Michael Montané, all fantastic artists. And of course, Chuck Dixon being one of a legendary writer, Mike Barron as well. And let's see if I can't remember. Of course, you got the Saskas who did that really cool run with Black Widow. I definitely need to get to my local comic book shop and see if I can't get those back issues.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I had it since way back when, so I'm good. Like, I had the singles and the trade. But I remember someone who was looking for it at a shop that I frequent at, I think about a year ago, because they were a Black Widow completist. And the guy who I know who orders it is like, oh yeah, that's out of print. And she's like, what? Oh, really? I'm like, yeah. And I don't know why Marvel doesn't print it. They should. They really should. I mean, they're lost that they don't. But know it seems at the time it wasn't a big book. It seems like it's definitely starting to garner attention now, but I think me and 5 others read it when it came out. It was 2018, 19. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Jen. So I know it was a 5-issue series. A lot of action. It was crazy. It was in the summer. I remember the number one came out in the summer. That I do know for a fact. So please correct me on anything I did get wrong.
Yeah, no, I haven't read it, so I don't know. Yes, so yes, Jen and Sylvia making the very apt observation that Disney took over Marvel, and they are very pro the P. Yes, they do not. They claim to be for the children, but yes, they are doing a lot against the children. Of course, with all of the trans stuff and all that stuff, it's been very damaging to children, and they're trying to course correct. But they aren't, so they don't want to touch that. And of course, the Saskas have been deemed to be, pariahs by basically everybody but us. People on the left don't like the Saskas because they're working with Eric July, and he's a conservative. He's a evil conservative. And of course, you've got people on the right that are outside of our sphere that think that the Saskas are woke themselves, and I don't want to get into that. But the Saskas, they're not liked by a lot of people. So even if the series is really good, you're going to have a lot of people that if they put it back into print as a trade paperback, you'd have a bunch of people getting on their keyboards saying, how could you make the Saskas, our platform, the Saskas, yada, all that nonsense. So that's probably why Disney doesn't want to do it. And also, I don't think Disney or basically any of the bean counters at any of these companies, because Marvel and DC are owned by megacorps, with Warner Discovery and Disney. They don't care about the comic books in terms of making money. So I think Disney just owns the comic division of Marvel just to have that control, and Warner Discovery are just like doing the paperwork to sell it off to somebody is going to be more trouble than it's worth. That's probably what they're thinking. So Black Widow's No Restraints play was supposed to be ongoing, but they let us go. We had so many others that Nat was going to track down. Maybe Saoirse will pick up where Widow had to leave off. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure if Saoirse is this character who has this moral compulsion to do what she does. Of course, she's a redhead bombshell. So I love blondes and I love redheads, which is why I love Yaira and I love Saoirse, right? And of course, these are characters that are actually, they're voluptuous, they're attractive. And of course, they're strong and they're competent as well. So you can have that, feminine wiles, and it doesn't mean you're just an object, right? They get called both alt-right and SJWs can't win. Exactly. That's the point I'm making. I love all of the people who work for the Rippaverse, especially the Saskas, have been absolutely fantastic to the fans. But that is part of the reason why you guys got dropped from the ongoing series, and you guys aren't going to be able to get work in the mainstream. But you get to work as the lore masters and writers for the Rippaverse, and of course you've got a fan base that's willing to support the company and make you guys good. It's like, you love me too. Thank you. Absolutely appreciate that. So Zayd says, good sent in for some proofs this week. Took care of an ISBN code for the book. Just getting ready for a stream in about half an hour. ISBNs, registering those is always something. I recently did that for the prequel to my book, From Men to Machines, that's coming out soon, and Machine to Man. And that was the first book I ever published where I did the ISBNs, and I did a whole bunch of wrong ones because I had no idea what I was doing. And I kind of do now with publishing books. Of course, I've only published novels, and I have written 3 books, and only one's been published. That's Machine to Man. But see, I already read that comment. So let's see. What is your favorite book, Nick? Since you're still in the chat.
Ooh, you're gonna put me on the hot seat with this one. Okay, this is the closest I've ever come to, I guess you could say, coming out of the closet in a way. My favorite book. You ready? It's Yaira #1 so far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yaira #1. I mean, Deborah Carita.
And that's not because the obvious 2 are in the room. You can ask Andrew, Caffeine Wolf. I think he's the only guy I told behind the scenes. I think he may be the only one I've ever told, because I didn't want to make a big fuss about it at the time. But yeah, since you asked me, I refuse to lie and dodge questions. Yeah, that's my numero uno.
Yeah, I honestly have to agree. Yaira #1 is an absolutely fantastic book. definitely probably cream of the crop for the Rippaverse so far. It just gives us so much to work with for the fans, with the implications it has for Alpha Core, with the implications it has for Yaira's story and the broader world, especially that ending.
Mhm.
So yeah, Caffeinated Wolf is confirming that you are not
Yeah, we
bearing false
spoke
witness
in
against
person
him.
about that.
Yes. So yes, your favorite is Yaira #1. So Yaira is a fantastic book. I say
Mhm,
Bloodruth was a close second for me. It's about as good. And then I mean Alpha Core. Absolutely love Alpha Core because I
mhm.
love Braxwell. Braxwell is probably my favorite character of the Rippaverse because he's just oozes cool. And of course, that strong silent type and his character design is really cool. I definitely need to see more Braxwell, but like Chuck told me, Braxwell is hard to write for because he's just this strong silent type. So
You'd
Mike
think
says
that'd
his
be his specialty, considering how many
yeah
vigilante, muscle-bound dudes he already writes on default.
yeah, but
You'd think that'd be his specialty. I'm
yeah
not joking. I'm not like how is that? How's that? How is Chuck of all people saying that that's complicated? I feel
yeah
like
no
that's like
I
I feel
yeah.
like he wakes up and breathes that.
Yeah, it's not that he can't do it. It's just that like he's aware that there's a way you got to finesse and do things. That's what he said to me. So I'm just saying I'm just telling you what he told me. But Mike
Okay.
has bad knees. Says his favorite book's been Horseman. So Horseman
Mhm.
was a fantastic book, and that was a really good establishment of the character of Horseman. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited for that ongoing series. Logic's Finest is agreeing with us that Yaira #1 is his favorite book. It's intricate, complex, multi-layered with no tropes. Constant fast pacing is difficult and needs really good writing to not be, a trope. Sasuke's do it well. Yeah, there's a lot that happens in Yaira, and especially with it being 96 pages, that's about 4 monthly issues worth of books. So it's probably about the same amount of content that they did for Black Widow, No Restraints, probably a little bit less. And there is a lot that goes on, and it all ends really well. So we got Bruce in the chat here saying hello to the Saskas. Of course, welcome to you, Bruce. Thank you for tuning in to Braxcast Live. I am currently with Nick Weiser, who has very graciously joined me, and we are nerding out about Zalen. What Kills Must Die, and of course, the Rippaverse in general. We're just talking about Yaira and how that is our favorite book. Of course, the Yaira statue is fulfilling. I got that. So be sure to tune into the Braxcast tomorrow. It won't be a live episode, but I'm going to show off the Yaira statue and its box in its full glory because that thing is absolutely massive. The box, like there's so much packaging. But that is a really nice statue. McFarlane Toys and the Rippaverse did a really great job in making that. And of course, I've got the 93rd of 500 statues. So I think you can still buy it. There's probably still a couple left since it is $500. It's not something that really moves all the time. But it is a really cool thing for the fans that they did that Yaira statue, and it was as good as it was, or I should say is. But with Zalen, what are you looking forward most to Zalen? Because like I said, it's just these cosmic implications. Because we have Magus New Might and the Voice Scarabs, as we know from his Dokkan card,
Mhm.
and we have Dirty Deeds, of course, being written by Carol Brown. And I definitely think Zalen and Bong and Tala, if I'm getting those names correctly, are going to be pretty integral into establishing the cosmic aspect of the Rippaverse, because we've been very insular into the Rippaverse so far. It's just been Forest Park, and we had that one scene in Dresden that one scene in no, not Dresden, Drescher. I'm getting
It's all good.
Drescher with the beginning of Horseman. But we've been very much limited to Forest Park, and now we're going to expand the scope, and we're going to be looking into Zalen. So it's going to be really cool to see like how Zalen establishes the cosmic aspect of the Rippaverse and how we're going to begin to see other things slot into that. So is that what you're feeling? So what's your commentary on that?
That's definitely a part of it. I have definitely been aware of who Joe Bennett is for a long time, and I mean a long time. So he's clearly a veteran like Chuck Dixon before him, and it's nice that we're gonna see Bennett basically do his own version of the New Gods of Fourth World. Because DC had the New Gods, Marvel had the Eternals, and this is Bennett going full Kirby. And I've read interviews with him throughout the years, and two artists he has mentioned very frequently in interviews are Jack Kirby and Olivier Coipel. And those are two really talented artists. One is an old school guy, traditional, and then you have Olivia Coipel, who's definitely more big time in the, I guess you'd say, the mainstream of comics, but he's definitely more current. And I could definitely see him taking those two, but making his own thing out of it. So I'm absolutely stoked to see Bennett's arc get elevated to another level. And now, as far as a story-based level, I'm happy to see the Rippaverse go into space, man. Like, it reminded me of when I went to Houston, Texas for my first time, and I drew by NASA, and I saw a giant cow with a Texas flag in a space outfit at the McDonald's right next to NASA. So I'm hoping for some awesome space stuff, really. And I was like, dude, this is, I can't wait to see what is this character going to do? What's he like as a person? Does he have a big cast that's going to be like, let's just say, relevant to this universe? Is he the one entity outside of Dokuman who's important in the universe? I am curious to see what is going to become of this. And as far as I'm aware, I think this is a one shot. So my guess is Chuck is going to probably pack a lot of story in this. And there'll probably be things that will get wrapped up, but there'll also be little things, little details that'll be dangling for other threads that he can pick up in their stories, and maybe the other writers, Eric, Mike, and Jen and Sylvia, can pick up for future stories as well. This feels like it's definitely going to be one of those expansive universe type of stories. It feels like it's definitely going to really expand the universe, not just because of its location, but what it's going to add potentially to the lore. That's my predictions. I could be wrong, but a man can dream and have fun and get hyped.
I agree wholeheartedly. So this is going to be a one shot, and I think Chuck did a really great job with Horseman in making that a satisfying story on its own, while also being a setup for the ongoing series of Horseman. I think since he's got 80 pages to tell this first story of Zalen, he's going to do something that's very much in a similar vein. And I definitely think Chuck Dixon, with how good he is with outputting scripts, he can be the writer for a Zalen limited series. It's just like I was saying this at the very beginning of the stream, is that Joe Bennett is doing 2 ongoing series now. So to have him do like a third series, even if it's a limited, I think that would be too much for him.
We don't want to stretch him too thin.
Exactly. So I think having Jack Herbert having Jack Herbert and Chuck Dixon, do a Zalen limited series or even a Zalen ongoing series, I think that would make more sense to have Zalen be an ongoing series, especially considering the fact that, like I said, this campaign is probably going to make between $100,000 and $200,000 when it ends. So it's probably not going to do as well as Horseman. But I think it's going to do well enough that it's going to justify a limited series, especially when this book comes out and the fans love it, because this is Chuck and Joe, and we loved Alpha Core. Ram mentioned that his favorite's Alpha Core #1, his favorite book so far. Bloodruth comes in second place, and I loved Alpha Core #1 as well. Ram, fantastic book. I think that was probably like the first Joe Bennett book that I read, because I'm a comic newbie, so I don't have much experience with the big two, and I am going to be 27 at the end of this month, so I'm a very young guy. So by like late teenage years, like when I would be at the peak of being in comics, is when they were doing all of the nonsense, like making Iceman gay, and now Peter Parker can only be in a situationship with Mary Jane. He can't have a committed relationship with the love of his life, and of course, all the stuff they do with Miles Morales and the whole Spider family. But that is a whole bunch of stuff I don't necessarily want to do. But the Saskas are saying Zalen has a lot of ideas Joe Bennett had rejected that are pure genius. Man, that is some high standards. But Joe and Chuck know what they're doing, so I'm looking forward to this. But we're going to Logic Finest, who's been chatting a lot. Thank you so much for that. Let's see, have you asking the Saskas if they've ever read the Uber comic series. Kane and White did 80% of the pencils on the books. A World War II story can be awesome with great writing. Have you or the Rippaverse thought about the genre or anything with a historical setting? So yeah, a historical setting would be interesting. I watched Benjamin Button. I did that. I think that
was what? Hold on. Sorry, I mistook that for Shelton Benjamin. Sorry. Wrestling just got in my brain as you said that, even though Benjamin Button's a movie. Go, carry on. Pretend I didn't speak.
Yeah, so I watched Benjamin, the Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and that's a very historical. It has a lot of historical aspects to it. Of course, starting at the end of World War I and taking World War II and narrating like the 50s, the 60s, and all of that that stuff. So you can tell stories that are set have historical settings, and you don't necessarily have to make it all about the history itself. It just can be in that backdrop. So you can definitely have like, someone, let's say the Salvage has like a grandfather and he's doing stuff during like the 40s. It could be really noir with that. I think that would be a pretty good setting for a historical setting, is to have something like the Salvage's grandfather, maybe like Saoirse's grandmother. Who knows? But you could definitely do a bunch of historical books for the Rippaverse, and we will see if that happens. So have to check that series out. Talking about Uber, see, there are Rippaverse stories, or there will be Rippaverse stories set in the past. Of course, they're not going to say anything more than that. And of course, let's see. I'll tell you right now, there is so this is Andrew saying that he's telling us right now that there is no chance in hell Joe would let anyone draw a Zalen ongoing or limited series. So you're saying that if the fans demand a limited series, Joe is going to be like, I have to do free ongoing series. Okay. Oh, if Joe can do it, then Joe can do it. And I don't want to take that away from him, because clearly he sees it as his baby, him and Chuck. I just don't want him to be like overextending himself, but I definitely would love a Zalen limited series at least. It's just that like working on 2 ongoing series already is just insane for Joe. But I absolutely love his art, so I'm going to, of course, be reading Horseman and Alpha Core. So excited for the one of Horseman, number 1 for Horseman, and number 2 for Alpha Core. So Logic is excited for Zalen, his favorite genre, of course. I love science fiction as well. And this is definitely probably going to be more of the science fantasy than hard grounded science fiction with rules, although I could be wrong. It could be a mixture of both. Let's see. Uber set in World War II, very unique story, never done before. Great pencils by Kane White. Of course, Kane White is going to be the artist for Saoirse, and that's going to be an ongoing series. So Kane White working on an ongoing series is absolutely fantastic to see. And I believe I posited this question as a daily poll to the fans a long time ago, if Kanan would ever do interior art for the Rippaverse. And of course, Rippazine 2 comes out, and you have that short story of Saoirse, 16-pager by Eric July, with Kanan doing the artwork on that. Now Saoirse's gotten greenlit for a ongoing series. Really excited for that one. So with Salvage and Saoirse, going to be crossing, are they going to be crossing over? I wonder. I'm very curious, because they both have the LFR certification. They're both operating in Forest Park. You think there's an opportunity that this probably would happen in the Saoirse ongoing series? I don't think this will be the first issue. I don't think it would be the number 1. It probably happen maybe 3, 4, where Saoirse has to work with Salvage for one reason or another. Do you think that's something that could happen? And would that be something you would like to have happen?
I do think it will happen. When, obviously, is anybody's guess. Why I think it'll happen: one, it'll be easier to have. This is a very simple reason. The Salvage is supposed to be a one-shot, and the more you do stuff like that, a one-shot, whether it's for the Salvage or for Zalen, you can have that opportunity to present a character. Hey, okay, this character is not being used for a book. I can throw so and so into another book. So that does make it easier for the writer in that regard to be able to use a character like that. So I believe Salvage will eventually be in a Saoirse book, or if not somewhere else, or maybe there'll be a team up book. So, and Saoirse is supposed to be the ongoing, well, Salvage is supposed to be the one shot. So as much as I love, and trust me when I say, the Salvage story is actually one of my favorite things out of the Rippaverse in its entirety, 100%, one of my top favorites. I actually like the idea of a one shot. There's something cool about having that special moment where a character is in and out, and it's like, well, if you want to pay attention, you gotta go follow them on this trail or on that trail. I think that's cool, and that's a good way to get people to check out other books that maybe they normally necessarily wouldn't check out. And when I used to be invested in Marvel continuity back in the day, I'll tell you what, man, there was a time where, like, there was a Spider-Man book or a Daredevil book, and I want to know what was going on in the continuity, and so-and-so was going to go, let's just go meet up with the Fantastic Four, have a discussion at the Baxter Building. Well, if I had to go read that Fantastic Four, see what was going on, you damn right I did it. And if you can get the right story to get people invested to want to have that crossover, it can work. Do I think it'll be a rolling thing? Well, who knows? But is it something you can play with, especially if you can get the excitement and investment of fans? I believe so. That's and then again, that's the optimist in me speaking.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree. One shots are really interesting because there's a little investment, so you just pick up salvage lethal force, and there's nothing before, nothing after. It's a self-contained story, and I think this is what's turned off a lot of new people getting into comics. Is like, well, if I want to start reading Batman, where do I start? I could go all the way back and read Detective Comics 27. I could start with the various Batman number ones. I could go with like Batman Year One. And I have, I've read a little bit of Batman. Like I think I've read like some of Court of Owls, and some of the new 52 stuff associated with Batman. And this cover of I agree, Mike, is really cool. That's why I'm showing it off. And I love these retro covers. I think the fans have really mandated. I don't think Gooding had a retro cover B, and a lot of people were disappointed with that. I forget if it was Gooding, but there was one book that didn't have a retro cover. The fans were not happy with that. So having a retro cover is just an absolute mandatory thing. And Frank Fosco really knocked it out of the park with this one. Rippa did say he's good people, and I absolutely love having that character box there, approved by the Rippaverse Comic Code of Ethics. And of course, this is really, I believe you're more experienced than me, Nick. This is definitely taking after that Jack Kirby style.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
It's clear that Bennett wanted to take what Kirby did and really roid out on it, and good. I mean, to me, if you're gonna go for the Kirby crackle, you gotta go to 11 with it. Obviously, to reference Spinal Tap. If you haven't seen that movie, you should. You gotta go nuts with it. And Kirby, to give you, I guess you could say, the best pop culture reference as far as a mainstream level. Now, it doesn't get quite to the level that a Kirby crackle did, but I guess once again, it's the closest thing. Regardless of how you feel on the movie, assuming that you saw it, Thor Ragnarok. Now, I know that movie's got a lot of polarized opinions, one end or the other. However, there's one thing people can agree on, that the movie is very visually bright and colorful. And it's clear someone was trying to go for a Kirby-like influence with that. And judging by that cover, which looks like it's got the more old school style of not just the, when you had the throwback covers where you had first appearance of and the description, what goes on in the book. But if you look at the way, let's just say you take like an old Adam Warlock cover and then put side by side with this, there's a similar look to the appearance of the knight in both those things. So you'd have to look at it. I think it's under the Warlock Jim Starlin run to be particular. So I don't know if it'll immediately come up under like recent images. Look, oh yeah. Speaking of which, look at that right there. That's a good cover to have a basis for. You could tell right there. He loves those colors, and he loves being really bright and weird and out there. And Bennett really went to that length with this book. I know it's a premature thought, but just judging off the cover, judging off the cover, it seems like that's going to be a thing for the story. So I'm excited. I like space characters. Once again, I loved Marvel in space. I love DC in space, whether it's the New Gods or whether it was the stuff with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. I'm a big space fan, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what happened. And this is actually going to be probably the first book, and where I actually buy more than one cover. I'm not one of those guys who gets every cover. I'm a simple guy. I want to read the damn comic and get invested in the story. But this might be the first one where I get multiple covers, because I have yet to see a Kirby Crackle type of book, and woo, man, this cover is like saying, Nick, take me, and I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, I have every cover for every single Rippaverse book.
Smoking.
Yeah, and I have signature series and graded slabs, I think, of every single book. Not signature series slabs for every book, but I even have a graded. I have a slab for Isom 1 cover D. That's the creator's edition, which I thought I had basically one of the only ones, and I think I had the best ones. Mine is a blue. It's a universal grade, but Bruce, I don't think it's the Bruce that's in the chat, but it's, the Bruce who's also a really big spender of the Rippaverse, and he has he puts me to shame with my collection. Have respect to
Bruce,
me.
He's giganto.
But he's got a signature series of that cover D. Mine isn't signed by anybody, and it's in his lap. So he outdoes me a little bit on that. But like I said, I have copies of every book, and this is the only thing I do where I collect that hardcore. It's because I am so invested in the Rippaverse. So I understand not wanting to collect. So for most projects, like if it's basically anybody else's book or projects, I'm going to go with one cover just to be able, to afford it. And plus, I'm not super interested in collecting, but like I really, wanted to be like the Rippaverse guy. And I'm not Rippa guy, but I want to be like one of the like people who's like most invested in the Rippaverse, and that was how I went in with Ice number 1. And I've been very fortunate to be able to maintain that momentum. And of course, I'm not sure how much longer I can do this with the amount of stuff they're releasing. I'm gonna be
it's time to get a second job. It's time to start donating some plasma. Maybe also start collecting some scrap metal.
Yeah.
Maybe you ought to make like a second and third YouTube channel. And you know what?
I got the Substack, so you guys can become paid subscribers on the Substack to support my comic book habit. Let's see. Logic is responding. For Ragnarok was filth, insult to the source material, teased Beta Ray Bill and Planet Hulk, threw out canon. Hela was a girl boss. Who's Thor's sister now? Or who is Thor's sister now? The director and Feige can F off. Yeah, I was never the most into Marvel. I was 10 when Iron Man, that movie came out. I absolutely loved that movie because I was young at the time and I had no knowledge of the comics. I still don't really have much knowledge of the Marvel comic lore. So I stopped watching basically any Marvel movie after Endgame. And the only thing I would watch from Marvel would be the original Guardians of the Galaxy. I played the Marvel of the Guardians, the Guardians of the Galaxy game. That Square
game, shockingly.
That was a good game. I was surprised. It's not like anything revolutionary, but
doesn't need to be.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's just a fun third-person shooter where you have enough integration with Gamora, Rocket Raccoon, Drax, if I'm getting their names correct. And you just have this, decently interesting, coherent story, and it's a fun game. And that game actually turned out to be good. I think we were all surprised that like Marvel did something and it wasn't it's a steaming turd, especially post Endgame. Like Endgame was this epic conclusion to the first 3 phases of the MCU, and it was like it was teetering to get there. There was a lot of quality issues that the fans had, even without the woke stuff. That's a whole other conversation. I think that really started with Captain Marvel. And that was, the tail end of the third phase. That's when it was like going into overdrive. But the, thing, I think there was, things with pacing and continuity. And now it's just off the board because the writers don't talk to each other. They don't collaborate. I'm sure the Saskas can talk about this, is that they're constantly working and collaborating with each other, making sure that the canon and the story stay consistent at the Rippaverse. That's not something that the writers at the MCU care about. Because they don't care about the comic books. They just care about making the movie the way that they want to. And a lot of the times it's the way that Kevin Feige wants it. So we got Andrew here in the chat saying, RB, we could start dropping 1 book per half dozen years if it makes you more comfortable.
I like the frequency. I actually love I expected it, but I will welcome it.
I love this release schedule. It's just that like I probably will have to tone back, and you guys aren't doing signature series for every single book, so it makes it decently affordable. So if you love Guardians of the Galaxy, you'll love Dirty Deeds. Really excited for Dirty Deeds. It's going to be an interesting one. But of course, with that being a 16-pager, we're not going to get much into Dirty Deeds, but just that they exist and how they tie into the broader Rippaverse is definitely something I'm going to want to see. So most likely, hopefully, Caro is writing a full one-shot script, and they can get that greenlit after the fans respond positively to Rippazine number 3. So we're going into Logic Finest, who's didn't know how young you are. He's Gen X. Former hardcore classic Marvel Comics guy. I walked away from Marvel Comics after Civil War in 2005, but Marvel Reborn in 96 was a slow Jack. Logic's Finest. I'm going to make you feel old. I was not even alive in 1996.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's a joke I have with myself. Is that like I'll think of any year It's like, oh, something happened in 2018. I wasn't even alive in 2018. Of course, I was alive in 2018. But yeah, 96. I was born in 98. So I was like, I'm the tail end of the 20th century. So I can still, if when I become an old man and if someone asks me about like the Beatles or anything, I'll say like, yeah, I remember that. We're from the same millennia.
You'll have very surface level details, unlike most people slightly older than you. It happens, certain generations latch on to certain different things. I mean, there was a point in time where a lot of, let's just say, DC fans who maybe were born in the 80s or 90s, they won't have the same affection for, let's just say, most of them, by the way. There's not all of it, because there's ugly exceptions to the rule, but they won't have the same affection that the generation before that had on the Teen Titans. And we tell people that nowadays, like, yeah, once upon a time, the Teen Titans were one of the premier DC comics. You wouldn't know that now, given that they seem like a lost cause. But yeah, once upon a time, their book was head-to-head competing with the X-Men at shops on a monthly basis. You wouldn't know that now, though, because, it seems like they've become a bit of an afterthought in recent times. And that's why a lot of us are here, because of how it was one thing when the quality of the books are dying down, but when they started really, really messing with continuity, and then changing the characters very, very deeply. Yeah, that's why a lot of us are in these spots, because we got tired of it. And clearly our emotions were taken advantage of, because we were ingrained in the habit. We supported our shops, and we didn't want to just let it go and drop at the wind, because these are things that were basically extensions of our lives. And now we have people who come in who had no business being there, ruining it. So it's nice to have this void being filled right over here at the Rippaverse. Yeah, and Andrew, he's one of those guys. My guess, I mean, Andrew and I never talk about age, but if I had to guess, he's probably younger than me. But he's the type of guy who I know has DC knowledge, so I know he can vouch on my behalf. Yeah, once upon a time, Teen Titans was the book like that. Marv Wolfman, George Perez one, chef's kiss. But let's bring it back to the Rippaverse, though.
Yeah. That's so yeah. Daughter is older than me, first year of Gen Z, so probably like 97. So I'm born like right around the cutoff for Gen Z. So I'm like I'm either, the way you can cut it off, I'm either the youngest millennial or the oldest Gen Z. It really depends. So I'm like in that in between for generations, which is a really interesting thing, because like I remember going to Blockbuster, I remember video cassettes. Like I remember getting paper report cards when I was in elementary school. So I still have like some of that like pre-internet age. And of course my parents are definitely, they didn't raise me to be an iPad kid like they do, like so many parents do today. So Captain is going to be 37 this year. Nick Teen Titan. So yeah, he's exactly like 10 years older than me. But the biggest thing is that great thing about hobbies, we can all share what we love regardless of age and share a pint as friends. Absolutely fantastic. And this is one of the great things with hobbies and all these sorts of things, is that as long as we have the shared interest, it does not matter for that. Yeah, so 96 is a cutoff year for millennials and year one for Gen Z. Yeah, it's typically like 97, 96. So yeah, like I said, I'm like 2 years. So the way generations work is that like it's like 1996 to like 2012, right? So the way that works is that I have more in common with someone born in 1995 than I do with somebody born in 2010, right? But like someone born in 1995 is a millennial, and someone born in 2010 is Gen Z. So that's the kind of thing with generations that makes it a little bit weird, but it's an approximation of time. But anyway, that's that whole thing aside there. Nick, you said you had to go soon, so if you don't have any more,
the moment, unfortunately, and I don't want to go. This is more of like I gotta get ready for my show tonight, and before I get ready for my show, I do want to read The Great War of Separation. So I do want to do those things and have extra things to talk about on my show tonight. But thanks for inviting me on here, man. I don't know if you're on. I think you're on Twix. I'm at Nick Weiser, like on my avatar. Follow me. I'll follow back. A pleasure to meet you. And
I will definitely
paths again.
Yeah, definitely. I am on X, so I'll be posting the VOD on X, and I'll tag you on that because you were like
Love it.
basically the guest. So yes, yeah. So at Nick Weiser, right?
Yes, sir. Thanks
Okay.
for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Appreciate
You
it.
have a good night. You enjoy the Great War of Separation.
All right, you too. Thank you, and thank you, Chad, for being here.
Okay, so it is just lonely old me now with 9 viewers. So that was a really fantastic conversation I had with Nick. Of course, all of you guys have been in the chat. So absolutely making this a really fantastic show. So Logic's Finest says Rippaverse has brought back his love for comics again, buys older collections of classic Marvel and the rare series like No Restraints Play. Yeah, that's probably what I'll do. Is I'll go to my local comic book shop at some point and pick up like some Justice League and Avengers omnibuses and just read some of that. But getting a poll list for Marvel stuff and reading about like Iceman's homosexuality or reading Ironheart, I'd rather gouge my eyes out with rusty nails, and I'm being charitable. Yeah. Mike has bad knees. Nix is a great conversationalist. Yes, he really saved the stream for me. So I definitely want to tag him on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call him. Definitely came in to save the day for the first Braxcast live. So we covered a lot of what I wanted to cover. Talked about Zalen a bunch. Talked about the Bloodruth. Did my little bit of exegesis on the Bible in terms of the passages that are relevant to Bloodruth having a unbroken ancestry with Cain and having a descendant of Cain survive Noah's flood, and of course having stuff from the Saska sisters, and of course all those great conversations that we had with Nick, who's definitely a much more knowledgeable on the classic comics than I am, being a newbie. So if there's anything else you guys want me to talk about that is in relation to Zalen or the Rippaverse in general. Of course, we did talk about the hero stash a little bit, being able to consolidate orders or our pre-order orders. So if you have pre-order Zalen, and then let's say Horseman number 1 comes out after that, you want Horseman number 1 and Zalen to come at the same time, you can totally do that now. Absolutely fantastic. So Logic's Finest is saying Rippaverse has made me buy current comics for the first time since 05. I started walking away in 96 when Marvel Reborn came out. Marvel threw away their canon in history. Yeah, the late 90s is when that comic book crash happened. And it's probably part of the reason why is that all the stories were becoming bad. So you had this encroachment of the corporatism into the creative industry. And that was true for basically games are still a very young medium at the time, but movies and movies and comics, I'd say, we're definitely feeling the brunt of being corporatized and throwing out the canon and all that stuff. So there's a closeout stream for 30 minutes in the Rippaverse channel. Yes, the Rippazine closeout stream. Andrew did mention that is going to be 7 p.m. Central Time, which is 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's just under half an hour. So we've been live for about 90 minutes. So I think I'm going to end it here really soon. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this first episode of Braxcast Live. Absolutely loved doing it for you guys. And of course, big thank you for Nick for coming out, really saving the day, being a great conversationalist. It was an absolutely fantastic conversation to have with him. But since you have that Ripazine number 3 closeout stream, final chance to pre-order the Ripazine number 3 collection. Of course, we were talking about Dirty Deeds a little bit, this 16-page short story. And I did talk about it on the last live stream I did, the Random Rippaverse Ramblings live stream. That is going to be a pretty interesting story. And of course, I love the first 2 issues of the Ripazine. And we're at $92,000, 3,900 books sold for the Ripazine. Might just get to $100,000, but of course it is an $8 book. So even if a bunch of people come out and support, but it'll probably be just under $100,000. So Logic is saying he understands the need to update and stay current, but Marvel took the nuclear option, and Brian Michael Bendis is patient zero for all woke at Marvel. Don't necessarily want to get into that, but yeah, you want to keep things fresh and exciting and do new things, but you don't want to eliminate the reason why people become fans of what you are in the first of your property in the first place. And I think that's what Eric understands. That's why respect the canon is part of the Rippaverse ethic, right? Is that you have the fact that people get into Isom because of the way that he acts. People like Yaira because of how she acts. You know, same with Bloodruth and Zersha, and we know that the people who are at the Rippaverse, Eric and everyone, are actually committed to making sure that the characters stay consistent while also adding new things to keep it fresh for the fans. So Saska say that I am awesome, very appreciative of that. Plus you for what you do and being so good to us. Well, you're good to me, so I'm only showing reciprocity, and hopefully, God willing, we can keep being good to each other and the fans can keep being good to you guys, and we can just have this really awesome fandom. Yaira is one bad bitch. Bloodruth is a selfless hero. I love both. I love both of them too. Really going to be interesting to see where they go, especially Bloodruth. Such an interesting character. The fact she can travel through dimensions, and the fact that we have that ending of the of Bloodruth #1 being that first interior appearance of Dokumon. A bit spoilers, but oh god, I love Dokumon as a character. I really want him to have more interior appearances. Hopefully you guys get to that. Of course, I don't want to NDA you guys. I don't talk about Dokumon being in future comic books. Rippaverse appeals to me. This is Logic's finest. I want to attack anyone for what they like or don't. Let's all enjoy what we like and share a point. Exactly. But I think some people have this need, like they have this view that either Marvel or DC or the Rippaverse are one way, and that has to be the way for everybody. Is that like if I read Bloodruth and I think, hey, it's a good book, I really like it. You've got a section of people on the internet that think that like it has to be like the worst book ever made. And this has been the narrative that's been going on for basically everything in the Rippaverse, is that like everything they have to do has to be like nefarious and evil and fraudulent. And if you don't like the books because they don't jive with you, or you think that the art is bad or the writing is bad, that's one thing. But to come to me and say that like I can't, or that like I'm like extremely stupid for liking the books, is a bit ridiculous. And I'm glad that you guys are not like that. Absolutely fantastic. But like I said, I think it's time to end. We've been going on for an hour and a half. So thank you guys so much for showing up. This was an absolutely fantastic stream. Very much rambly. Still need to get better at being a live stream presenter. But hopefully, when another big thing happens for the Rippaverse, when we have another big week, I'll do another Friday Braxcast live, or maybe one over the weekend. Of course, I'll probably do some more general live streaming. I definitely want to get into live streaming on Rumble as well. But with that, I'm going to end it here. You guys have a good night. And you got that Rippazine free closeout stream in just over 20 minutes. So you guys have a good night. You guys have a fantastic weekend. And thank you so much for tuning in to the first episode of Braxcast Live.